Hi everyone, thanks for having me. Today I'm going to be showing Particle Emitter 3D. It's part of the Continuum Complete package. I'll show you a few of the presets first. And these are just the presets set up on a solid layer. Here's another. And the great thing about this plugin is that there are tons of options that you can put your own particles in. There's a huge library of particles, presets, and that kind of thing. Let me play you a couple of more examples here. The plugin is GPU accelerated in OpenGL. It's not CUDA. It's all cross-platform. I'll show you a couple more samples here. And there's a big variety, as you can see, of the presets. I like to use the presets as a jumping off point. It helps get things started quite a bit quicker. Use a preset, modify it, and make it your own. There's some nice snowflakes. A lot of these particles are very realistic looking, and today I'm going to be showing you 3 different projects. But before that, let me finish showing you the examples. Now, the great thing too about this plugin is that it utilizes the 3D camera and lights, so it's great for compositing into 3D. Let me just show you here. I'll move this camera around, and you can see how I can really move this in 3D space. Now, this uses a particle library elements. This is a preset again, and let me show you one more example here. Just some lines. This would be good for a lower third. What I'm going to be showing you first today is this effect here, how to create a cool logo wipe effect with particles. And it's very simple. It'll only take about 10 minutes, and if you have the plugin, you can do this today. You can play along. You can download a free trial. It's a 14-day unwatermarked trial from either borisfx.com or from toolfarm.com. Try it out for free, see what you think. It runs in a slew of different host applications as well. But if you want to utilize the After Effects camera and lights, obviously you need to be in After Effects for that one. So this is the first one I'm going to show you today. The second one is a fireworks, and that one I'll be diving pretty deeply into the particle system. And the last one, I'll be using a plugin called Organic Strands, and that will interact with the audio. So we've got some really cool, diverse projects here to show you today. The first one here is this text effect. So I'm going to create a new composition, and I'll call this particle logo. And I'm setting it up at the HDTV 1080 size, 29.97. And I'm going to make this about 6.5 seconds long. And black is fine for the background. I'll click OK. And with this effect, you need to apply it to a solid layer. So I'm going to add a new solid. I'll call this particles. And actually, I've kind of moved ahead of myself. I want to type some text first. I'm going to type out the Boris logo instead of using an image. You could do either way because I'm going to be using this as a matte. So if you had an image with an alpha matte, that would work as well. So I'll type up Boris Effects. This font is called Denmark. And I'm making this pretty large so it fills the screen. Drag it to the center. And I want to pre-compose this. I'll be using this as a matte. So layer, pre-compose. And I'm going to move all the attributes over. I'll call this Boris Effects logo. And there's no need for me to open a new comp, so I'll just click OK. All right, so now I have that pre-composed, and I have my particles layer. I'm going to move that on top. It really won't matter too much, actually. And I like to use the effects and presets because I do have a lot of plugins installed here. So I'll just start typing particle emitter. It's BCC Particle Emitter 3D. Helps if I spell it right. And I'll drag this to my solid layer. I can also just double-click it to apply. If you prefer to use the menu, it would be under Effect, Particles, Particle Emitter 3D. Now this is new in the most current version of Boris Continuum Complete. It's version 8. And I believe I'm on 8.03 right now is the current version that's available. So if you have 8, make sure that you update it to the most current version. All right, well, let's get this started with the particles here. I want to first adjust my emitter. When I apply the effect, here's what I get. It just kind of goes from the middle of the screen. This is the default look for the effect. I should also explain a couple of other things before I jump in too far. In the effect controls, you'll see how it's all broken into different sections, render, emitter, particles, transform particles, and so on. And this keeps everything nice and tidy. When you're using the effect, when you open these up, you'll notice there's tons of options. And this keeps everything nice and tucked away. I can use the comp lights or built-in lights with the comp camera. And I'm going to be using a comp camera on this one, so I'll add a new camera moment. And I'll just leave it at my default settings for right now, which isn't really a default, but it's what you used last time. And I know that's a good setting. So anyway, I'm going to be checking this Use Comp Camera button. All right, let me get going here. I'm going to turn off my Boris FX title and just use the particles for now. I'll be turning it back on just in a moment as reference. But under my emitter, I'm going to change the growth rate to 1500 so that I'll have a lot more particles on screen at once. I'm going to change the particle speed to 50. And so what I want to do here now is use the emitter shape. Oh, sorry, not the emitter shape. I lost my spot here. One moment, please. It is the emitter shape pop-up. Layer map. I want to choose layer map. And what I'm going to be using as the layer map is that title that I just created. So under layer map, there's the emitter layer, a couple down here, and I'll choose that Boris FX logo. Now, when I preview this, have a look at what it looks like here. You don't really see much, right? You see it at the very beginning. Let's just keep going here, and we'll finish up. Let me scale it up here. There's an option for Scale Master. So I'm going to go to the first frame, and I'm going to set some adjustments here. For the particle speed, I'm going to set the value to about 58. I'm at the first frame. I'm going to set a keyframe here. So particle speed, we'll turn it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to go about a second in, and I'm going to set the value to 0. And now I should be able to see the text a little bit better. So let's see, particle lifespan. I'm going to go up ahead. At the end, you saw how it blew out. We're going to set that up here. I'm going to go to about 523. Oh, there you can see it nice and tidy. Okay. This is where I'll need to adjust the size here. It's odd that it's doing it this way. That's okay. So I'll scale it up just a tiny bit more so I match it in. There we go. All right, let me turn off that Boris FX logo again. Now you can see it's all filled in. So, all right, let me get back to setting the lifespan. I'm at 523. I want to set a keyframe here for particle lifespan. The default is set to 2, which is great. I'm going to go ahead to 6, where I want them to start dying off. I'm going to set that at 0. All right, Z position is the last thing. You saw how it blew ahead at the end? That's the next thing I want to keyframe. So I'm going to go to 3 seconds, right in the middle here. See, now it looks fine. So let me just set a keyframe here for position Z, which is I'm still under the emitter. And I'll go ahead to 404, which is just a second ahead. And I'm just going to turn that down a tiny bit to 0.1. Now, a lot of these I just want it to look kind of like it's bobbing in really quickly. A lot of these controls, you can set them up to 0.1, and you'll see the effect you can really, really make it a lot of detail to your different options. You have a lot of options here, as you can see. So the last thing I want to do, as it's blowing apart, I want to pull it forward. So I'm going to set Z position to 2. All right, now you can see that they've really dispersed here. All right, let's take a look at how this looks right now. It's not coming in from the side. That's my problem here. I forgot to set the position of the emitter. That explains it all. So I'm just going to jump back here where I was before, and I'm going to go to about a second in, and I'm going to set the position of the emitter. So I'll set a keyframe here for position XY, and I'm going to go back to my first frame, and I'm going to set the position over to the left so that it looks like it's zooming in from the left. So here we go. It's magical. All right. Let me get back to where I was before and make sure I didn't forget to do anything here. It's looking good. All right. So now I want to set up the particles. Right now the white little dots are a little bit boring. We can make this really fancy and cool. Now, as I was saying before, that you can put in your own images. I'm going to jump to the end here where they come forward. You can see them a little bit larger. You can see some of these a little bit larger. I can, you could use a host image if you have your own logo or your own little image of a, say, bat. If you want bats to fly all over your screen. There's rounded blurs, spheres. Here's a cylinder. Doesn't really look like a cylinder, but cards, cubes. There's all sorts of different options here. Right now I'm going to use the image collection, though, and I'm going to choose, actually I want to show you a few of these. Blood splatter, I'd imagine that must be. Here's a jet trail. A little hard to see what these are. Maybe I'd be better off showing you these later on. Or you can download it and check out the plugin yourself. Sci-fi. There's lots of cool options anyway. So the one I'm going to be using is called Sparkle Four-Pointed Flaring. So I'll select that one. And you can see how it's kind of a little star kind of shine. I'm going to move my camera a little bit forward, actually, and so you can see these a little bit better. So I'll zoom the camera forward. Let's see what we have here. Let's see if I messed everything up. Looks like I did, but you can see the particles there. All right, let me put it back where it was, or I'll turn off the camera entirely. So that's what I have so far. Oh, look at that when I turn it off. Let's turn the camera back on, shall we? Let me throw a new camera on there. And those are the options I used before. Great. Okay, here we go. My particles are looking a bit smaller. That's what makes me think it was the camera. All right, so now we can colorize these particles. Let me go back. I just double click. Whenever you can't see your effects in the effects control window, just or the panel, I guess they're panels, select your layer and hit the letter E, and that will bring up the effect, and then you can just double click the effect in the timeline and it'll bring it out. So let's go back and we'll colorize the particle. I'm going to make the particle size a little bit bigger here, so I'll set that to about 60. And now you can see it a little bit better too. That's helpful. You can see these nice sparkles. Another nice feature is that they have these graphs, these size evolution graphs and other evolution graphs. So I checked this box and I can twirl this open. You can see that there's kind of a little downhill. There's all sorts of options. I can draw on my own, and you can see how that affects it. This is evolving over time, so you're not really going to see much here. But I also have these options that I can just choose, and I'm going to be choosing a rounded one here. Let's have a look here. So it just gives the size a little more of a natural look. And I want to colorize the particle to a nice light blue too. I'm going to leave the color mode set to current color and change it to a light blue, something in a nice light blue family. And I also want to set the blend mode to add. All right, so what that does by setting it to add, if I have two particles over top of each other, they'll look hotter and whiter. So it will give you a little bit more variety here. And I will be adding a bit of glow as well in the end to make it look nice. Right now it's still a little bit static, but I'm going to now address the fractal field group, which is another here that I just need to twirl open, fractal field. And this will give me more of a noisy look and kind of a pulsating look actually. So I'm going to go back to the first frame. The shortcut key for jumping to the first frame is I, the letter I for in, and the letter O for out. So whatever layer you're on, it'll go to the in and out point of that layer. So this fills my composition, so it's going to be going to the beginning of the timeline. So for under fractal field, for movement noise, I'm going to set a keyframe and set the value to 500. And that will give a nice sort of wavy look. Let me go ahead and set another keyframe. I'm going to go in a little after 2 seconds, and set that movement noise value to 0. While I'm here, I'm also going to set the noise frequency, which is right here. The default value is 100. I'm going to set that to 35. And I'll go back to 1 second, and I'll change that back to the default value of 100. All right, let's see what that did now. I hope this is playing smoothly for you. I know sometimes when it's streaming, it's not so it's a little choppy. Lastly, I want to change the auto evolve speed. It's set to 100. I'll have that to about 50. so I don't have quite as much movement. You can see they're kind of coming in. It's almost like a fairy dust look, and they're giving like a wavy effect. It might be a little bit difficult to see. All right, I'm going to easy ease my keyframes here too. So I'll select particles, the particles layer, and hit the U key. And what the U key does is it brings up anything that is keyframed. So I'm going to just select all of the keyframes here except for noise frequency, which is on the bottom. And there's a couple of ways I can easy ease keyframes. I like to hold down the control key. I'm on a Mac, as you can see. The shortcut might be different on Windows. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm holding down the control key and I click on any of the particle emitter or any of the keyframes here under particle emitter and go to Keyframe Assistant, easy ease. There's an F9 shortcut as well. Oops, I just did easy ease in. Try that again. Keyframe Assistant, easy ease. All right. Otherwise, you can go under Animation, Keyframe Assistant, easy ease. If you've been using After Effects for a while, I'm sure you know that already. But for you newbies out there, that's a great one to know. Last thing I want to do is add some film glow here. I'm going to throw this right on this particles layer. And the Boris Continuum Complete package has a really, really nice film glow. So I'm just going to type film in my effects and presets until I find it here, film glow. I'll drag that to my particles layer. And you see these handles here. I have the option of dragging them out. You can see the glow intensity goes a little off the charts here. Again, there are presets that I can choose. A lot of these have presets. That's the default setting. Green haze. There's lots of fun things. I can adjust the color and all that. I'm going to go back to this default here. And I just want to change the color of the glow and change the threshold. Now I can drag it around here if I like. It might be a little hard to see these numbers on your screen. I'm not sure. All right. What I want to do, though, is change the color first. So glow color. I'm going to go somewhere in the blue family again. And again, I can tweak these over and over again if I'd like to. Glow threshold parameter. I'm going to set that one to 25. All right, so here's our final composition without the little things that caught me up in the beginning here. You can see it's quite nice. I do have this with the camera, so I could move the camera around if I chose to. The colors are a little bit different than my original composition that you saw in the preview, and the positioning is a little bit different, but you get the basic idea of how it all works. All right, the next thing I want to show you is some fireworks. I did bring in another version of the composition this morning, and I realized that part of the thing was missing. I accidentally deleted a file. But this is the basic look of it. The fireworks will go in front of the building, which in this example I'm showing you right now. However, we'll address that, and I'll show you how you can eliminate that problem. It's really easy. A few things to notice here. There's a nice glow on the fireworks. Everything is completely generated with the plugin. You've got hot spots in the center that are glints of where the sparks are going off, and the effects will fade out. The fireworks will fade out as they're falling from the sky. There's gravity involved, there's wind involved, there's a reflection on the water. There's a lot going on here. So let's just, I've got about 3 seconds of it previewed. So you can see how that looks. There's also this little boat going by in the bottom of the screen, and I'll show you how to deal with that so that the reflection isn't over top of it. All right, it sounds complicated. There are quite a few steps here, but it's not difficult. So let's get started here. I'm going to create a new composition, and I'm going to set this up again with the HDTV settings. I'll call this one Fireworks, PE3D, which stands for Particle Emitter 3D. And I'm going to make this 10 seconds in duration. I have a clip of the city in the background here too that we'll be using. So this looks good. I'll click OK. Black background is fine. And first I'm going to create the particles. Again, I need to throw them on a new solid layer. Layer, new, solid, and black is fine. I'll call this one Particles. That helps if I spell it right, huh? All right, Particles, make comp size, which it already is. That's all set to go. And again, I want to apply the particles. So I'll go to Particle Emitter 3D, and I'm just typing this in my effects and presets. I can double click the effect, and it will apply it to the layer. Again, here is your default setting. Now, I'm holding down my Shift key to preview every other frame to make things go a little faster. And if you noticed, when I held down my Shift key, that if I have the effect selected, I get these little tracker center, L3 position. These are parameters that you can modify. It's just kind of a visual of where your points are, which is pretty cool. We won't be using it for any of the projects today, but just so you know it's there, I just have the effect selected and I'm holding down the Shift key to get that effect. All right, so let's set up the emitter first. So I will open up emitter, and the first thing I want to do is change the birth rate. 40 is a bit slow, so I'll crank that up. And remember, the look is fireworks, so we want to have bursts. So I'll change the particle speed to 50, because we don't want it too fast. The idea here is to make it look natural. The particle lifespan, I'll set that to 5, so they live a little bit longer. And lifespan random I want to set to 100, so that they're not all exactly the same. Now there's a couple of cool options here that you won't see in other particle generators, and that's the option of rhythm. And the rhythm right now is set to continuous, and I'm going to set that to random bursts. And what this will do is, instead of spewing out all at once, it'll be sort of a poof, poof, poof kind of effect, like fireworks, in little bursts. Now there's also the option of acceleration type, and I'll set that to explosive. The regular value is just, the default value is none, or a constant rate. So we'll set this to explosive, and you'll see how they kind of pop out. Bang, bang. The last thing I want to do here is set my position Z parameter up near the top. I'm going to take that back to 0.5 or 0.5, and that'll just bring it back a little further from the screen. All right, so that's starting to shape up a bit. Let's adjust the particle. So I'm going to be using the same particle as I did on the last one, that kind of flare sparkly effect. It's perfect for this, for a firework. It looks like a little ember. And I'm also going to check, well, let's change the size here. I'll crank it up a bit to 60. The default is 30. It's a bit small. And this will give me a little bit more of a glow. And light blue seems to be the color here, so I'll make this a nice shade of light blue. And these will be evolving later to all different colors, but for now light blue is really nice. And I'll set the blend mode to add. And that will give me these hot spots in the center where the particles are overlapping. And size evolve graph, I want to set that up again too. At the top under size, you'll see use size evolution. I'll check that. And twirl open size evolution graph. Again, same thing with the I can draw it on. I'm just going to use sort of a hill effect again. There's another one, so I'll just keep tapping this choose button until I find the one that I want. Not this one. I want something. This is one that I want a little wider. There's also the option of random, which will give you all sorts of random effects that aren't curves or parabolas or whatever. All right. Well, let's preview this. You can see what I've got going here so far. Nice burst. Now it is pretty round, and it's all coming from the same spot. So that's the next thing we're going to change. We're going to be adding an expression. You might think, oh, expressions, oh no, I don't do those. But I've got it in big type here so you can have a look. This expression here is the expression we'll be using, and we'll be putting it on the position XY parameter. So to break it down, I'm using the effect here, BCC Particle Emitter 3D, and to the parameter position XY. And this is just telling me where to put, or telling the software where I want the point to be put. It's a pretty simple expression, and it'll just allow the center point to be moving along the horizontal and vertical axes a little bit. It'll give random movement. So it'll look a lot more natural. And a little word about expressions, if you're not real familiar with them, you need to keep the syntax absolutely perfect. So if you were to put a capital P in position or random, it wouldn't work. You need it typed exactly as it is with the spacing and your semicolons and all that good stuff. So just so I don't mess it up, I'm going to cut and paste this from my own page here and go back to my particles and bring up the effect again. And this is under emitter. So to apply an expression, what you want to do is hold down the Option key and click on the stopwatch. So notice as I do that, it opens up on the bottom in the timeline here, and it gives the default expression. Now this won't really do anything. Also, you'll notice that it's pink or red in the parameter. So I'll select what's in there, delete it, and paste, or I can just paste over it. And now when I play this, you'll see how it's jumping back and forth as opposed to just coming out of one spot. So pretty cool. I'm sure that we can make this expression available to you later on, so you can just cut and paste it later. I'm not really an expressions person, but they're good to know a few basic expressions. So the next thing I want to do is adjust the physics of the effect so that it's not all looking the same. So I'm going to go under External Forces. And this is where I can give wind and all that kind of thing. And we'll add gravity as well. So I'll set the air resistance to 75, which isn't real windy, but it'll give it a little bit of an effect. And the wind X to 10, and the wind Z to 100. And I also want to set gravity, and that is under Emitter. So I'll set the gravity to 10. And this will give it the effect of falling. You know how the fireworks kind of fall out of the sky as they go off? They shoot up for a minute and then they'll fall. So I think it's pretty darn cool. You know, it's easy to set up and it looks very natural, like fireworks will. Next thing I want to do is under Spawn Particles, which is another group under the effect controls. I'll twirl open Spawn Particles and I'll turn it on, and I'll set this to continuously. And what I want to set up here is the acceleration type. You notice that it has the option of different images. Well, right now it's set to link shape with master, and I already have a particle set up, so I'll be using that same particle. And I want to set the acceleration type. Here we go. It's set to constant. I'll set this to explosive. And I also want to set gravity here. Where is it? Gravity. Gravity. I'll set this to 20. And I'm going to use the size evolution one more time here, so I'll check use size evolution. And again, I'm going to be using the same rounded. That looks perfect. Actually, maybe I want a different one. Well, here's what happens when you hit the random button. You'll see you get all sorts of interesting shapes in your graph. But let me find the one that I want here. There we go. Let's have a look. So it gives it some variety and a natural looking effect. All right, well, let's add a bit of color to this now. It's the blue and green is lovely. However, I think we need to add more random colors. So I'm going to be adding that to an adjustment layer. So under Layer, New Adjustment Layer, I'm going to call this layer Hue and Glow because I'll be adding a glow to it as well. I'll select the adjustment layer and hit the return key so that I can rename it. I'll type that Hue and Glow. And I'm going to be using the BCC find it a minute. Hue Sat Lightness. So let me drag that over to the adjustment layer. And really what I want to be affecting here is just making the cycle of colors move around. So I'm going to set a keyframe at the first frame. Again, I hit the I key to go to the first frame, the in point. I'll set a keyframe for hue. I'm going to go to the out point, so I'll hit the O key. And I'm going to set this to 5 revolutions. So now watch what this does when I play it. You'll see that it will cycle through all sorts of colors, which is very nice. And you have some variation in color here too, so it's very natural. All right, the next thing I want to do is add a production camera here, and this will help us position the fireworks in the sky later on so that it looks natural. So under, I'm going to go Layer, New, Camera, and I'll call this Production Camera. And as I was saying earlier, it will remember your defaults from last time. There's not really a default except maybe when you install After Effects, a fresh install. So I want a 2-node camera, 36 millimeter. I'll have the zoom set to 352.78 millimeters, and the focal length is set to 18.75, except I just moved it. Put that back. 18.75, and the angle of view is set to 18.66 degrees. So a few of these, when you put in the value, the others will change. So everything looks good here. I'll click OK. And I also need to go back to my particles layer and check this Use Comp Camera box. So you see now that they just sort of zoom away from the camera a little bit, and it doesn't look like they're kind of in the middle of the screen, which we'll move this later on. I'll show you a cool trick where you can see both the final comp and the other comp that you're moving something in at the same time. That's worth sticking around for. So, all right, and now we're going to start compositing onto our cityscape. So I'm going to pre-compose these three layers: the camera, the hue. Oh, I wrote hue and glue. Hue and glow is what I meant. I just like rhyming. So let's select all those three layers, and I'm going to pre-compose those. And if you're new to After Effects, pre-compose is just kind of like nesting. I'm going to call this one, I'll call this Fireworks 3D, or PE3D pre-comp. All right, so I'm going to move all of the attributes to the new composition, and I'm also going to check this box, Open New Composition. We're going to go back to this one a couple of times, so it'll just be convenient if it's open in there. So there it is. Let me go back to this main composition. You can see that this is pre-comped. And I will grab my footage. I believe that this is ArtBeats footage. I just want to drag it behind my fireworks. As you can see, the fireworks are right in the middle of the screen, which doesn't work so great. But we will be fixing that. So for now, there's a few things that we need to do. The fireworks will be behind the city. I know you probably have them over water in the real world, but this isn't the real world here. So I'm going to drag another instance of the city into the scene, and I'm going to put this over top of the fireworks. And what I want to do is just make a rough mask around the screen. So what I will do here is I'll use this effect, this reset exposure. It's not really an effect at all. What it is it allows me to adjust the screen while I'm viewing it, and it won't render this way. It's just for while you're working. So if something's really dark on screen, if you're rotoscoping, for example, this would be great to use. So I'm just going to put a rough mask. I think there's mountains back there, so I don't want to have the mountains in the shot, just the front of the city. Just quickly go over this for you. And I want this to be a closed mask. It doesn't have to be super accurate. It will be feathered. So when you hover over it, if you see that little O next to your pen tool, that will close the mask. It's a closed circle. And now you can see the fireworks behind the city. So what I can do here too is to set up a track matte. So I'm selecting the fireworks layer, and I have the masked city above it. And I'll select that layer and then alpha matte inverted. So I want the city to, or the fireworks to show up above the city and not over the scene. All right, easy enough there. I didn't feather it though, did I? Let me select that scene again, or select the one with the matte, and I'll tap the F key. The letter F will bring up feathering, and I'll set the feather to 20, and that'll just soften up the edges. If I were to turn off the background, oh, that's not helping, but it'll be soft, trust me there. All right, another thing I want to do is to adjust how the fireworks fall towards the ground so they kind of fade out. And with that, I'll be using the Pixel Chooser, which is another plugin in the BCC package. This Pixel Chooser it's integrated into several of the plugins, not this one. So I'll just start typing Pixel, and I'll grab Pixel Chooser, and I'm going to apply it to my fireworks composition. All right, now this default is a black and white matte. As you can see, that looks pretty funky there. Oh, now you can see my soft edge of the city as well, where it's feathered. I'm going to set this first to mask unchosen pixels. And this is a red mask. This is like you'd see in Photoshop when you have your channels turned on. So I want to set the shape of the mask to linear gradient. And I'll set the direction to -90. Actually, I noticed this yesterday. I don't really see much of an effect here. However, when I set this back, it'll end up being set to multiply alpha in the end. When I set it to multiply alpha, you can see the effect quite a bit more. I also want to change the point of the gradient distance, so I'll set that to 40, and you can see how it moves down a bit. You know, I'm going to jump ahead too because these fireworks seem to be in the back a little bit too low for some reason. So what I'm going to do is show you that trick that I had scheduled for later on how to move the particles and see two comp windows at once. I'm just going to jump ahead and do that right now. So the rest of this will look a little bit better. So here's the trick. What you want to do is, if you want to see two different compositions at once, is lock your composition window, or your panel here. So I'll lock this. Now notice that I'm on the main composition here. This is when I'm moving something on. It's locked. And I'm pulling down this menu at the top, this new comp viewer. I'll select that, and that will give me two side by side. Notice the one on the right here is unlocked. You go back to my projects and look for my pre-comp, and I'll double click that, and now you can see there it is. Oh, you know why? You know why? I just realized I messed up. Why this isn't working. So what I'm going to do, I didn't set up the camera and set it to the left camera. I'm jumping ahead. You know, I've been over this project so many times you think I would know it by heart, which I sort of do. So on my fireworks composition, I want to set this to the camera to left view. Right now it's set to active camera. If I set it to left, I can move the position of the camera. This will help a lot. Having problems today. All right, so production camera. I'm going to grab the box for the position and put it somewhere near the top, maybe 3/4 of the way over. And then I'm going to drag the little point of interest thingy into the corner. So now, as you can see, actually I'm glad I did it this way, because now you can see how that really positions the effect over here. I can also move that camera just a little bit. Just use the unified camera tool. And I'm going to go back, if I go back to the production camera, and I can move that around a little bit, you'll see how the effect is moving in the other window. So sometimes mistakes aren't that bad, huh? All right, so let me get back to where I was here. Next thing I want to do is add a bit of a glint on the explosion. And this will just make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to set another, I'm back on the original pre-comp file. I know I jumped around a little bit here. It's hue and glow, not hue and glue. That's going to bug me. All right, so set up a new adjustment layer, new adjustment layer. I'll call this one glint. Glints. The package, the Boris Continuum Complete package, has a really, really nice glint to it. So again, I'm just going to start typing glint, and you'll see BCC glint. And I'll apply it to my glints layer here. And again, I have these options to drag these out, drag out the handles of the overlay controls. You'll see show overlay controls here. It's on and off. Let me reset this to the default value. There's a few things that we want to do here. It's really, really strong. So let's turn the threshold. The glint threshold is fine where it is at 50. I'll set the glint brightness up to 185 or so. And it seems really bright here. And set the glint ray to 0.01. This was one of those things I was having some problems with the beta. So this is new to this project here. So let's just see how it turns out. If it doesn't look good, I'll just turn it off. So glint ray height, we'll set that to 0.1. Okay, this glint threshold is much too high, or much too low. Okay, it was I had 50 in my notes, but it looks like it's a little bit high. Let's too much. We can always adjust this later. Looks good, about there. The basic idea is just to have some hot spots where the fireworks are exploding. So let's just take a quick look at that, how it looks. I'll RAM preview every other frame here. And see, it just gives you that kind of hot spot where they're popping. It just gives it kind of a more natural look. All right, so I'm going to go back to the composition here, and I never turned off this exposure. I'll be using that in a moment again, but I'll just leave it off for now. And I'm going to save. It's always good to save your projects. The next thing I want to do is add a reflection on the water. There's quite a few ways that you can do this, but I found that the easiest way is to just drag your a layer of your, I'll be grabbing that pre-comp layer in of the fireworks. I'll drag that in, make my layer 3D, and just scale it and reposition it and kind of reverse it. You can see there that it's reversed upside down, and I'll just position it somewhere nice in here. So here's what it looks like on the ground. I do want to add a blur to that to make it look more natural on the water. But you'll see this boat down here, and you can really see how the boat gets in the way of the particles. And you wouldn't see a reflection like that. So before I add the blur, I'm going to mask out the boat. And there's a very easy way that you can do this. I'm going to up that exposure again just by clicking this option. I can crank it way up or just find a comfortable level where I can see the boat popping out a bit more. So I'm going to be adding a new solid layer, and this will be the boat mask. So layer, new, solid. I'll name it boat mask and make it the same size as my comp. I'll click OK. It starts at the first frame here, and I'm going to turn off the visibility of the layer so that I can see through it. Because this boat shape doesn't change, it's very easy. We don't need a rotoscope or anything like that. I'm going to go to my first frame in my timeline by hitting the I key and doing a rough mask around it. And I found a little trick last night, too, that worked out pretty well. I noticed this layer right now is black. If I turn it back on, it's black. Instead of a black layer, if I make it a medium shade of blue or some other shade, it'll use a Luma matte as opposed to the Alpha matte. And I can just get more of a softer, natural look to it. So there it is. Why is it white? Did I accidentally make it white? Nope, I didn't. All right. Anyway, so I have my mask layer here, and I'm going to be dragging in another instance of the city. So I'll drag that right below the boat mask. What I want to do is set up the track matte here, and because it's all white, I will go, oh, you know why it's all white? It's because I have the exposure way up. There we go. It's nice and blue now. I'm going to select my layer of the background, and it will show up through my boat mask. So I'll go to track matte, and this time I want to do Luma matte because it will be a little bit softer then. I also want to feather that mask a bit, quite a bit. So I'm going to hit the F key on the boat mask layer, and I'll crank it up quite a bit to around 50. So now when I'm over the area with the fireworks, you'll see how it's not over top of everything. Maybe the layer is too light of a color. I can also try doing the, I can set this up instead of a Luma matte to do an Alpha matte. And you can see that it'll pop out everything there. So I have both options. What I haven't done, though, is keyframe the mask. So let me do that a moment. I'm going to turn that back on so I can see it pretty well, and turn the mask on as well. And I'll hit the letter P. That is for position, set a keyframe. Then I'll go to my out point. You can see that the boat's moved up a little bit. It's a little hard to see with those fireworks on the screen. Just turn those off, and I'll move the mask over. Okay, no need to easy ease or any of that. So let me turn the boat mask off. I'll turn off the exposure, and I'll turn my fireworks back on. And now the boat is not being hit by the firework reflection. However, it doesn't look so great without the blur. So let's add some blur. Now we have a really, really nice pyramid blur that's included with the Continuum Complete package. So I'm going to be using that. So I'll type up pyramid blur, and I will drag this to the fireworks layer. Now this is the reflection layer that I want to apply it to, not the first one. And again, I have the options for the blur and all that. I can, or for the overlays. I can drag it out until I find something I like, natural, or I can adjust it up here. It's a little bit bright, so I want to turn down the opacity of the fireworks. Opacity, if I select the layer and hit the T key, that's opacity. I can turn down the opacity of that. And here's what we have so far. We're almost done here. The last step is going to be adding another adjustment layer, just adding a little bit of film glow over the top of the whole thing. That will brighten up the scene, and it'll really give it a nice pop. All right, so I'll do that next. I'm on my final composition here. I go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and I'll call this Film Glow. And I will go to my effects and presets and just start typing film. and drag film glow onto my adjustment layer. And it's a bit bright. Let me just turn that down a little bit so it looks natural. And there we go. We have fireworks. I know that there was a lot to that, but I think it ends up looking really nice and really natural. So this would be great if you have a scene and you're shooting fireworks off in a city where you're not allowed to shoot fireworks, for example. All right, so there's the preview of that. I'll just do the first 4 seconds and I'll play it for you. Nice. I keep seeing this thing bopping up and down here. I hope everything's okay, huh? On air, it looks good. Okay. The next thing I want to show you is the final composition. Now we just swapped out some music this morning, and what I'm going to show you is how you can create a cool kind of eye candy effect and make it react to your music. So I'll create a new composition, and I'll call this Organic Strands, because that's the effect I'm going to be using. 10 seconds is fine. And let me just create a new solid layer again. Layer, new solid. I'll call this Strands. And the color doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make it black anyway. And I'll make this comp size once again. Click OK. Let me go show you. I'm going to be using this the cool energy paths. There's all sorts of presets here that you can check out. Lots of cool organic looking elements, and you can have these react to your audio too. And there's a built-in camera, and you can use the comp camera. So here's just a couple of the presets. Kind of crazy stuff. So the one that I'm going to be using today is called Cool Energy Paths. It's the first one. And this is what it looks like. Just stuff moving off of the screen. We did swap out the audio track this morning because there's something I want to show you really quickly. And that is a new feature at Toolfarm. It's from Smart Sound. We work with Smart Sound to create quick tracks. And what this is it's a huge database of different audio options for you. They're 20 bucks a piece. So say that you want to do something with you can put in a keyword, for example. Say you want something that is futuristic. You're doing a sci-fi film. And I click futuristic, and then all of these options will load. So I can play one of these for you. So if you want to recreate Knight Rider, there you go. But there's other options here as well. I can set up all different time, up to a minute in duration. And this doesn't just cut it off or fade it out. What it will actually do is remix the music so that it's the exact duration as you want. Without cutting it out, it'll actually sound really good, like it was custom cut for that. A lot of these too have different options. So I have the full mix here. I can have a background or just drum and bass, drums only, sparse. Let's see what sparse sounds like. So these are watermarked. You just heard that lady go, Smart Sound. All right, so a couple of things here. You can save these to your account just for later on. If you don't know if you want them, just save them for later. And we're also adding the option now to be able to download a low-quality watermarked one just to work with to see if it works with your project, which I think will be really helpful, will be a big sell for most people. But there's all sorts of keywords, there's styles. I can remove selected tags here to just choose whatever style I want. Household, I wonder what that would be. Bathroom, oh, a few sound effects here. Well, that's nice, isn't it? All right, so anyway, the track that I chose today was from Smart Sound, and it's a crunk track. Let me just play it for you. I'm not going to be using the whole thing. I'm just going to be using a middle portion of it, which I didn't realize until after I downloaded it. So here's what it sounds like. So I'm going to start it somewhere where the beats come in. All right, so let me drag that into my composition, and I'll just move it down here. You know, I should mark it and all that, but I didn't. Let me just preview really quickly here to make sure I have it in a good spot. That's good. We'll call that good. I know it's not placed exactly, but that's fine. All right, so for the strands, I'm going to select the strands with the effect on it. So I'll tap the E key to bring up the effect and double click. And what I want to do here is use this beat reactor. I'm going to leave everything else at the default settings for now. But when I enable beat reactor, you'll see some fun stuff happening here. So I need to choose the host sound layer, then you'll see some fun stuff. So I'm going to be using Crunk Correction Facility, which is the piece from Smart Sound Quick Tracks. And now here's the fun stuff I was referring to. You see the audio spectrum is down here. Now the stuff on the left, the red, these are going to be your treble or your higher pitches. And it moves, the area on the right is more of your bass. There's bass here and sub-bass. So as I'll play this for you a minute so you can see how the graph moves. And what we're going to do is isolate certain frequencies of the spectrum and apply them to different aspects of this animation. So I'll be applying some to the scale, to the thickness, and disperse. And what disperse is, I can almost make it look like water splashing out of it. So you can see how the reds and the greens and areas are moving a little bit differently. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to isolate a few things. So first I'm going to set up parameter A. I've got 3 parameters I can use, parameter A, B, and C. I have it set to show graph right now so that I can see this. So I'm going to, it says unused for A. I'm going to apply this as source scale. And that's the scale of everything here. And there's no need to collect free keyframes or anything like that or monitor it. It automatically attaches to it. So you can see that it's already applying the effect to it without having to do anything, even though I haven't set up my area yet. So I'm actually going to apply this to the treble area, that effect. So what I need to do is under audio option or audio apply options A, I'll twirl that open and I can set up the sampler area. Right now the range is set from red to green there, and that's the wrong area. I want to select the blues. So that's the corner 1 and corner 2. So I'm isolating this area here. Now it's not real strong here for a lot of it. You can see that it doesn't really fill up the screen as much as the reds do. In areas it does, but not everywhere. I can increase the values here by going under the audio spectrum options, and that would be under my treble. So I can turn that up, turn up the value, until it fills my range. Now this isn't affecting the audio at all. It's only affecting the values of the data that it's pulling. So I'm not actually increasing the treble in the track. Let me show you a minute what I've done here, and you can see that it sounds exactly the same. It's cutting out a little bit over the top, which may or may not matter. Turn it down just a little bit. All right, so that is parameter A. Let me go back up here and make sure I haven't forgotten anything. I also want to set this to subtract from value, and that will give me a little bit different of an option, or I can set it to replace value as well. Where am I? Under A here, replace value. Maybe I'll leave it at replace value for now. And I can also set up ranges, which I'm going to leave these for audio A alone. All right, so the next thing I want to do is set up B, and I'm going to have the thickness used there. So under apply parameter B, I'll choose thickness, and that's the thickness of the strands here. That's pretty darn thick, as you can see, and it's using that same area, the default area. So let me open up options B, and I'll choose the corners here. Let's see, I have somewhere around here, about the middle of the screen, and the corner 2. I'll isolate this middle area. I know it's probably a little bit hard to see with that white there. So when I play this, here's what we have. You can see that this is kind of like the sub bass or the mids, that it's applying to those. I can move it over a bit too and get quite a different value from these greens if I wanted to. But for now, we'll leave it at that. I'll set this over here under audio option B. I'll set this to replace value, and that will tone down the effect quite a bit, as you can see. And I can also adjust the fall off. of the effect. The follow-up is set to immediate right now. I can set this to another option. Well, for fun, we'll just set this to quadratic hard, and I'll just leave the value as it is for the follow-up time of a ½ second. So it'll ease out, not quite as fast. It'll kind of fade out a little bit. All right, the next thing I want to set up is parameter C, and this is what I was talking about, the dispersion with it looks like a splash. So under apply parameter C, I'll choose dispersion. Actually, disperse propagation, is that an option here? Dispersion with propagation at the very bottom here. And I'll have some propagation options under here as well. So I'll twirl open, audio, apply option C, and I need to set up the area. And I want to select the red area or the base for this. So I'll grab the corners here to sample it, and just the reds. Now notice none of my areas are overlapping. They can totally overlap if you want them to. That's not a problem at all. So let me set up a few other things here. I'll set the, if it's too strong, you have a lot of options to set up here. I'll set this to replace value again instead of add to value. And it won't be quite as strong. And it's about the same actually right there. And I can adjust the output minimum as well. When I turn this down, you can see that it has an effect on it immediately, which is great. And I can change the output max as well. We'll turn that down a little bit. And I can adjust the apply strength so it's not quite as strong. Let's see how this looks here. Well, it's a little splashy, but you get the idea how this all works. Another thing I didn't set up was I was saying once we set that up, we have a propagation mode. It's set to unused, so let me set that to source to end. And that will kind of give it the effect of it splashing all the way out. The propagation time is ½ second. I'll set it to 1 second. Now when I play this, you can kind of tell the difference here. It does look like water doing some crazy effect. Just 1 second. All right, now to get this, get the spectrum off screen, I just need to go up to Beat Reactor and Show Graph and set that to no. And let me just preview this for you here. I'll load it. I'm holding down the Shift key again to load every other frame. And this is at full. So I'll just load 4 seconds of it or so, give you the idea of what it'll look like. This is a lot of fun to play with. All of these particle effects, they have the whole Continuum Complete package. It really has a high fun factor, and you can use it on so many different projects. You'll use it over and over and over again. There we go. So it's definitely reacting to the beat. All right, well that's about all I have today. Thanks so much for participating.